The Sharpest College Football Podcast. This is our Week 13 in review. A very ailing BuckMetrics with you from Newport Beach, California, with a much considerably more healthy Robert Martin from beautiful Canada. Robert, I hope you feel better than I feel.
Yeah, I went through the bug last week. I was sick just 2 weeks ago now. It feels a lot better when you're not sick, but I guess it traveled all the way from Canada all the way to Newport Beach. Took a long road to get there, but
Yeah,
yeah, hopefully you feel better for the holidays in just a couple days. But
a couple
yeah,
days. Yeah, I appreciate the early holiday gift from you. That was nice, just to send
yeah.
this virus across the internet. All right. If you are new, welcome. If you're returning, thank you for your continued patronage. This is our glossary. If you're new, take a screen grab of this, paste it into your college football workbook, and refer to it throughout this and other episodes for the rest of the season, which is diminishing by the day. With that, we get to who won week 13. I will go first, and I will say Ohio State, just definitively, the battle of top five teams. It wasn't really, I apparently I missed a little bit, maybe because I sneezed as I was ailing, and all of a sudden I missed a 7 point lead on Indiana's part. But when I finally tuned in, my gosh, it was not competitive, and it kept on. I would say it wasn't competitive. The scoreboard was not competitive. From a yardage standpoint, it was not that crazy. Just Indiana just couldn't get out of their own way on special teams. Ryan Day buys himself. Not that he's in. I don't know. Depending on who you talk to, he is or is not in trouble. Weird dysfunction in Columbus as usual there, but at least for a while, I don't know. He can breathe easily. Now he's got the bigger game coming up this week, but at least for a while, he can take this one. This is a bigger one, I think, than most people appreciate.
Yeah, for a few minutes, this game looked really a little sketchy, and to be fair, that would have been hilarious. That would have been if this had happened, it would have been so funny. Like I was watching the score at the time, and when it was 7-0, I was like, "Oh my God, is this actually happening? This would be amazing." And it did not happen. Spoilers, obviously, it did not happen. But if it had have happened, it would have been so funny. But no, again, shout out to Ohio State. They have been one of the better teams in all of college football for the past 3 years. This is they are. I think they definitely deserve to be from this win, from the shaky-ish Penn State win. They definitely deserve to be in the playoff. I think that's very clear. They deserve to be in the playoff. I look for now again. Will they win or will they win or not win the Big Ten championship game? I don't know. That's to be determined. But they are very clearly, based on what happened the rest of the weekend, they are very clearly one of the top teams in the country, and they are definitely deserving of playing some more games this year. But yeah, no, again, we never really. It's funny because now people they're gonna say, they doubted us. They doubted us. They thought we were, but no, we never really doubted you. We just thought Indiana was good, and yeah,
The double digit favorite saying everybody doubted us is a little worn out by now.
yeah. No, that's the thing. Yeah, we were like 2-score favorites, but no one thought we could win this game except for the everybody who was betting on us, and the sports books thought that. Again, I still think Indiana is a good team. Again, it's crazy that this is still year one under Signetti, and that this is their first loss of the season is Ohio State, and that again they're probably going to go to the playoffs. Yeah, a huge win for Ohio State, but shout out to Indiana for this wasn't the most competitive game. There was some miscuing. There was like a punt return touchdown, which doesn't help. But again, they were competitive for quite a bit of this game. It just got away from them near the end. But again, good. Let's see where Indiana shakes out after this. I still think they're one of the better teams, but I'm excited to see what both of them can do in the playoff in just a few weeks from now.
Yeah, I gotta say, yeah, not to spoil anything else. I don't think we're talking about it too much, but this is gonna be the first time I'm gonna be actually really interested in what the committee does in terms of with all the chaos that happened this week. So we will see. All right, your week 13 winner.
Yeah, we're going with Florida and fired Billy Napier here. Look at this. And further, I'm assuming this is post game. Lane Kiffin's. Oh shit. This is not good. At Billy Napier's, maybe I'm still fired. I don't know. But again, here's the thing. It's really funny because Florida has their sixth win, cashing their over, and they have bowl eligibility before their final game against Florida State, in which they are 3 touchdown favorites. Which, as we all know, is exactly how they drew up the season. That was the full
Yeah,
plan. Everybody knew the plan was go beat Ole Miss at home in Week 13, and then get the bowl game, and then roll into a game against Florida State and be a 3 touchdown favorite, right? That was the plan all year long, right? This is kind of an insane run for this Florida team, and I mean they have something. This was something we had talked about at the beginning of the year, right? And I think maybe with the Miami loss, I think we were all, oh, this team is like, maybe based on the severity of the loss, I think we're like, oh, this is bad. And then, but when Miami started doing better than we thought, maybe okay, maybe this Florida team's better than we thought, right? And then they barely lost to Tennessee, they barely lost to Georgia, two potential playoff teams. Yeah, that Texas game was not great, but this team has not had a lot of really bad games. They've had a lot of pretty good games,
No,
right? They beat UCF. I think they beat Kentucky. They beat LSU. They beat Ole Miss. This team isn't bad. The problem is that it just had an absolutely horrendous schedule this year, and I think now the schedule doesn't get much better next year, but let's see what Billy Napier can do with another year. And one more quick point I'll throw onto this too is that, and we'll talk a bit more about Auburn and Texas A&M in just a few minutes. But I saw a sports reporter after the A&M and Auburn game tweeting out that, oh, Billy Napier and Hugh Freeze, they're both coaches that are probably really happy right now because they've built elite talented teams, and they're poised to make big breakouts next year. I'm like, do not put Hugh Freeze in the same sentence as Billy Napier. First of all, I'm like, that's not like praise of Billy Napier. The jury's still very much out on Billy Napier, but there's like whole levels difference between Billy Napier and Hugh Freeze at this point. Whole levels of difference. So don't those similar maybe, but that ends there. I would still much rather have Billy Napier than Hugh Freeze as a coach. Just say.
so I'm going to rank three coaches here. I'm just curious if you agree. I'll start from the bottom.
Yeah.
So third place I have below the other two is Billy Napier. Okay.
Okay.
Number two, just above him, is fired Billy Napier.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think number one clearly is unfired Billy Napier. He's just a different guy now, right?
Yeah, it's this is like the third iteration of Billy Napier. It's like a Pokemon or a Digimon that like evolves. It's like unfired. But then the worst version is gonna be like extended Billy Napier. Then that's when you go 2 and 10 that year.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we don't want to talk about that. No, don't do that.
We're
Don't do
not doing
that.
that yet.
No. All right. Who lost week 13?
So many
There's
choices.
a lot. Yeah, this is a full ballot here. I went with this one because this was just full of losers throughout. I really wish I remember who said this, but somebody made a good point. I think it might have been Richard Johnson of Split Zone Duo, but somebody made a great point. They said Milrose been unstoppable for the most of the year, but I think Brent Venables might be the one that can stop him. And my gosh, he totally did. This was not competitive. All credit to Brent Venables, who's had a tough year, especially the offensive side of the ball, pardon me, who also did a really good job stopping Alabama and this great play. Did you see this?
No, I didn't see
Yeah.
this.
This amazing. Now, they were down by 21, but this was almost like not their last gasp, but if they wanted to change the flow of the game, if you will, I wanted to say tied, but that would be stupid and punny, of the game. This is an amazing touchdown catch. You need to see it by Ryan. What's his name? I just literally Chris Fowler it fault. When he called it live, he was like, "Yeah, that's incomplete," and then he couldn't believe that he actually caught it. This is one of the best catches that you're going to see this year, better than that one from the USC kid Kyron Ware against LSU.
Hmm.
This is just there seemed no way that he would possibly get in. He did get in, but it was called back because the idiot ref, it was called illegal touching because apparently, let me grab my laser pointer here. Apparently this guy, Mr. Williams, was deemed to be not or to be covered and therefore not eligible because this guy was on the line too, which you can see he is behind this guy even. It was there was confusion galore in the broadcasting booth. And the rules analyst, I think this was Matt Austin, who's very kind. He sounds like the kind of guy that reminds the kids to put on their helmets before they go outside to play. Just a very kind older guy, and I think it was just the wrong call. I'm confused. They blew it. So there was a lot going on here, but this I think we've talked about it on the pod a little bit. I know I've talked about it with you. I had been waiting for a long time to see what happens to Alabama post Nick Saban. I thought it was just going to turn into absolute chaos, and then they made a brilliant hire with Kalen DeBoer, and I thought, well, shoot, he's a good coach, and he's a grown up, and he just gets things, and he's a calm dude, and he's not going to make a mess of it, and it's not going to be as bad as I thought. I think with this loss, Ryan, Robert, I think we're going to see what I imagined, and this could be great. We could see Alabama turn into basically the college football version of post Saddam Iraq. It could be just all hell breaking loose here. I've really wanted to see this. We'll see. We talked last week about how that part of the country, the football fans, really don't fill the Buddhist temples and do self contemplation an hour every morning and really find out what's best for them and their lives and finding balance. This third loss and being outside of the playoff looking in, if it goes like that, we'll see tomorrow. Boy, that could make just things really spicy in the state of Alabama. We could have just like that rare instance when both Alabama and Auburn are like high levels of dysfunction. A lot coming out of this loss.
Yeah, and I think on there's a couple things to think about here for this. So we have not been like the highest on Bama this year. Middling on them. They're good, but they're not great. This is I did expect them to win out. I didn't think they would lose this game or really Auburn. But again, it's not the most unexpected thing. It's yeah, okay. The thing is, I think there's a couple of things on this because one, we had talked about last season, late season, Kalen DeBoer um, having some issues after the big Oregon win. That Washington team looked not good for a lot of weeks there. And the thing is, none of those teams were as good as this Oklahoma team that they played after that Oregon win. None of those teams were even remotely close to the talent level of the Oklahoma team they just played. And oh look, they lost. And this is the thing, and I think a lot of people will say, "Oh, Saban was such a good coach, such a good coach." And don't worry, we're not taking away from Nick Saban here, but it's he's such a good coach, such a genius, all this stuff. But I don't think that's necessarily the magic of Nick Saban or any of these kind of elite coaches. What I think it is their ability to have a consistent product on the field week after week. It's making sure that your team stays focused and basically game plans for all these games. You don't get them, they don't get distracted. They continue to have the same product on the field every single week. It's a consistency. That's what it is. It's not can we scheme this wide receiver open out of a triple coverage. It's not that's not the genius of Nick Saban. It's how do I get this team focused on a week to week basis and I don't make them lose, cuz that's the difference between a Nick Saban team where it's every week they're just like it's a given. They're just going to go buzzsaw team. And maybe every once in a while you have one of those weeks where okay, but that's very rare. And even as you started getting the last couple of years, that kind of picked up a little bit more. But it was still a very rare occurrence that you would have a game where Bama is a very clear favorite, 13-point favorite, I believe they were, and they just get destroyed. That normally doesn't happen, but we see that a lot with other teams, right? We saw that a lot this week with Ole Miss. We saw that with that a lot this year with other teams, right? But we've never really that was never a factor of the Saban era. And I think what you're getting at here is the fact that for many teams, I'll just say a team name here that I am loosely affiliated with, FAU. If you could say, all right, we'll have a good team most of the time, but every once in a while have a bad game, some of the lower schools would take that in a heartbeat. They're like, I'll take that. I'll have a coach like that's no problem.
Yeah.
But, and as you allude to in your point, this is not any other typical school. This is Alabama. And this is the problem, right? And the fact that, okay, yeah, that one loss, that really hurt because that cost you a chance possibly cost you a chance at the playoff unless there's some other weird black magic chaos that's about to happen this week. But that's the thing, right? Is the fact that okay, maybe this year, say that's fine, but do you have another Jalen Milroe lined up for next year? There's still a lot of Saban pieces on this roster. Can you recruit at that high level again next year, right? What we've noticed is that NIL has leveled off the playing field. Now, Kalen DeBoer obviously able to assemble a pretty good roster there at Washington, but he was able to get Michael Penix Jr. pretty cheap. Not a lot of people were pounding down his door after Indiana. He got a couple of good receivers, and then that was the whole thing, right? The defense was not particularly great. Can he build up this program? Because, again, there's still a lot of Saban pieces on this. Literally, Jalen Milroe is a Nick Saban piece. Can he rebuild a team in the next couple of years? And that's what we're really going to see here. That's the point that we're going to see here is, does this devolve? Does this devolve down to post-Saddam Iraq? Right? That's how we're going to figure this out. It's going to be found out through, are they able to be a consistent contender, Or are we going to have every year we have this breakdown where they lose to a bad team that they shouldn't lose to, and it's only going to take 1 or 2 years of that, and you're going to see some instability here in Alabama.
Yeah, excuse me. What's interesting is, as disappointing of a season and just a bad season USC has had, they haven't had a loss anywhere near as bad as this. They've led in the fourth quarter of every game. And it's just odd that a really good coach with a good team, not a great team, just can have this bad of a stinker. Excuse me. All right, you're week 13 loser.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be BYU here, right? And this is one of those kind of dual winner slash losers. Shout out to Arizona State, right? We keep talking about them, and I think every week I basically just every week you pick Arizona State as your winner. I think you're doing pretty well there this year so far. But again, it's this team. The win total was 4.5. They now completely control their destiny and are favorites to go to the Big 12 championship game. That's crazy. And the fact that, look at this, the field storming win against BYU. And the thing is, you have to have BYU as the loser here because 2 weeks ago they looked undefeated. 2 weeks ago they were slotted in for a first round bye in the college football playoff like the college football playoff. They were gearing up for first round bye, getting ready to go play on, I think, New Year's. Yes, that round's the New Year's round. They were getting ready. They were gearing up. It was going to be great. And now they're done. That's how fast this has gone. They lose to Kansas, and then they lose to Arizona State, and it's over now. That is how fast the win changes here. You're undefeated. You have a win over SMU, and now all of a sudden you're done. And that's a crazy turn of events in just 2 weeks. You go
Yeah.
from 2 weeks to we're gonna go to the playoff and we're gonna have a first round bye to yeah, we're not going. Now we can maybe go to, I don't know, a bowl sponsored after some military contractor. That's an insane difference in just 2 weeks. And I don't think people have quite realized that. But again, to be fair, now BYU has I believe their rivalry game is this week against Utah. They're going to get up for that game and then play in some sort of bowl game sponsored by a military contractor or a beverage or something. We'll see.
Yeah, I think they played them. Yeah, they played them. That was that
Oh, they did?
crazy. That was yeah. That was when I said yeah. Utah's defense is a fraud.
That's right. Yeah. So then who do they play
That was
this week?
that crazy holding penalty, which was the
Who,
right call.
yeah, who does BYU play this week then? Is it the well, it's rivalry week ish. Some people rivalry games,
Yeah,
some people are
they
not.
moved that around. I don't know.
Yeah,
If only we knew people that did a college football podcast that would know the answer to this. Oh, Houston. Yeah, their natural rival in the Big 12, of course.
yeah. It's for the name Cougar.
All right. One thing that brings to mind too is one thing I love about the new playoff format is my favorite part of March Madness is not the first or second round games. It's the conference tournaments because that's teams like playing for the dream of making the tournament. Not your big Yukons and stuff, but like the teams that like I have to win this and get in or else. What I love about the new format is you have that same intensity, but it's spread over basically 5 or 6 weeks now without a single without any diminishment or dilution at all of that intensity. You just saw
Yeah,
it right there, like you said. 2 weeks ago, they were like in the basketball tournament. They're a 2 seed, and now they're playing the NIT
yeah,
just like that. Really cool. I like that. All right, victory laps. So this is from week 10. I might remind everybody here. I went into much detail and I said, look, Jacksonville State is for real. They are they're the best team. We knew that Liberty was screwing around and having problems. And I might remind you, Robert, and dear listener, viewer, whoever you are out there, I pointed to this graphic and I said, I don't know how Jacksonville State is not favored to win this conference right now because they are clearly the best team. I will also remind you that these metrics had a lot of the non-Tyler Huff quarterback in there too. And this is when Tyler Huff just had those crazy games where he was every game he's passing for 250 and running for 100. And I just said, I lamented that certain unlicensed books, which with them I'm familiar, did not offer futures on our beloved Conference USA. But I encouraged people to look hither and yon for the chance to bet on Jacksonville State to win Conference USA. Now they are undefeated still. I'm going to pat myself on the back. They don't have to win this week to make the title game. They're in. They're
yeah.
in.
To be fair, I hope they do win because they're playing
I think they play Western.
Western
Does that
Kentucky,
sound
right?
right?
Yeah, I think they're playing Western Kentucky. So I bet Sam Houston to win. the Kusa. And if Jacksonville State wins this week and Sam Houston beats Liberty this week, then
Yeah,
they will go to the so that they have a second crack at it. But no, a really good bet by you for Jacksonville State. That was really good, and I think they can definitely they're definitely the favorites now. They don't even need to beat Western Kentucky. I think if they lose this week to Western Kentucky, they play Western Kentucky again. But to be fair, I think you do not want to play them again, right? I think because you just beat Sam Houston by 10, so I think you want to play them again. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not in their minds of Jacksonville State, but no, again, like really great run for them this year, right? They looked really rough in week 1 and 2, but they've completely turned the season around and they've done really well. Shout out to
yeah,
them.
yeah. And sadly, not a play, just a recommendation because unlicensed books that I know of do not offer Conference USA futures. But
Yeah,
uh, is life. All right, your
alas.
victory lap.
Yeah, no, this was a very weird one. We don't have a lot of victory laps specifically this week, but the thing is we have a lot of this week wasn't the greatest for our bets, but it comes with a heavy caveat that a lot of our futures now look amazing. So I'll take that. I'll take some short-term pain for some cuz like literally if certain things shake out the correct way in the Big 12, I have both sides at like insane odds.
Hmm, there you
Like
go.
that's I have
Yeah,
Arizona State and Iowa State. Like if things shake out a certain way, then no matter who wins that game, I win a couple $100. So okay, but now I may have jinxed it now. So hopefully not. We hope things work out right. But remember, we also have SMU. Things look good for them too.
yeah.
We have Tennessee to make the playoff. That looks pretty good as well. A lot of our futures actually look pretty good at this point, and we have some other futures to watch for next week. But this was a very weird one. This last week our model showed we like Louisiana Tech I think plus what 22 or 21 and
23
a
and a
half.
half.
23 and a half. Yeah,
Right from there, yeah.
some random spread against Arkansas, and we're like, that's weird. Why would we like this? And the thing is, this spread is a little deceptive because Arkansas scored with 2 minutes left in the game to get to the 21. So this actually was a pretty easy cover. Like, unless Arkansas randomly decided to go for a 2 point conversion for some insane reason. But like, shout out to the model for just absolutely nailing this one somehow. Never in a million years would have guessed this game would have even been remotely close, but the model just apparently just straight up knew this game was going to be close for some reason. Yeah, shout out to the model on that one's pretty crazy.
Models, plural.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
we will get into this in Island time, not in not in the next episode, but the next episode. I really need the model to be right on the Louisiana Tech defense. Just a preview for Island time here. I really need that. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Island time, dropping 24 hours from when you're catching this. All right. Speaking of which, my overperformer. I usually overperform is like, hey, good job, I'm proud of you, or I might have been a little hard on you. I was wrong, and here's my olive branch just to make amends with you. That's not the case here. I don't know who to be upset with, but I'm upset with somebody here. I'm gonna go Newport Beach Karen. Robert, you need to find the manager for me. I'm This is so frustrating. So these last 3 weeks are just nuts. They're just absolutely nuts. So my model based on the performance of each team in terms of turnovers and yardage and all that good stuff and efficiency, my model generates a post game expected score. So last 3 weeks we had UTEP should have beaten Kennesaw State. Let me just sorry. Running theme is my favorite futures bet before the season was Kennesaw State under 2.5 wins. It should have cashed by now, but screw you, Jamie Chadwell, for no showing. And then this stupid run here, which has just made this just been so nerve wracking. I hate this, Robert. I hate this. All right. So based on the performance of each team during the game, the post game expected score when Kennesaw played UTEP, that should have been a 2 touchdown win for UTEP. And what happened? It went to overtime. Now, thankfully, for we who are shorting the Fine Owls of Kennesaw State, that was a loss. Then we have the same thing happen again here. They should have lost by 8 points here, and again, an overtime loss. Robert, these are not even close. These should have gone to overtime. And then what happens? A 9 point game, still the big effort here, 23% win expectancy post game, and they win on the strength of a missed extra point by Florida International. I don't know. I think I've talked about this with you because there's no movies that I like to quote that you've ever seen, but the movie Rounders, you've probably not heard of that, familiar with it at all.
I think I've this looks this the quote looks familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Russian mobster here is just trying to get rid of Matt Damon, and just he's frustrated. He can't knock him out, and he's just hanging around. Just he can't get rid of him. I cannot get rid of Kennesaw State. I'm so mad. All right, we'll talk more about that in Island Time. But this is just I have not seen. I can't say I have not seen because there's another run that we'll get into. I think it's in my notes. I don't know. I'm just very discombobulated with this. I think I blame this for being sick. I'll just say that this is Kennesaw State has just thrown a virus upon me even worse than you did. I'm
It's
frustrated.
it's pretty crazy. I have a future bet sitting there wanting that to be cashed. Will not be cashed until the outcome of this game. I will say that this week this game is on at the same time as not only the Iron Bowl but also Notre Dame and USC. And I imagine like this really funny thing where like your family sees you on Thanksgiving and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna watch Notre Dame USC on Saturday?" And you're like, "No, I'm watching
What?
Kennesaw State Louisiana Tech."
Oh, is that this weekend? I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. Yeah, they do play Notre Dame. Yeah, that would be completely plausible were that game not hit on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, that's the they don't let Canada get that channel, so
Yeah.
I don't know
All right.
why.
All right. You're overperformer here.
Yeah, what is this? Like this is just an absolute beatdown of Wisconsin here, 44-25. Nebraska finally gets to a bowl game, right? And for people who have been following Nebraska for we follow all the teams, but we've been like silent Nebraska fans, supporters, silent Nebraska sharps for a couple of years now. I remember the pain and the agony of last year's Cyhawk game. God, that was so. Because I had Nebraska. The last 2 years I've had Nebraska winning the Cyhawk game. And both times they needed it to get to a bowl game. And both times they have failed. And now this year they don't need that. They do not need to win the Cyhawk game because they always lose Cyhawk in the most painful fashion, usually involving a field goal or a safety. And they don't it doesn't matter now this year. It's done. It's over. They're going to a bowl. They don't have to worry about losing to Iowa in some 1960s game. So, yeah, it's great. Shout out to them. This team did not have the year they wanted to have. They've definitely underperformed on the year, but just laying the beating into Wisconsin there, got to feel pretty good there. And yeah, so I'm excited to see what this team could do in a bowl that they may or may not all opt out of. We'll see.
Quick correction: the Cyhawk is Iowa State. This might
Oh,
be like the Cornhawk Bowl or something. I don't know what they call that.
yeah, that's yeah, okay. Whatever the
But
rivalry is with Iowa, yeah.
yeah, I would like to point out too a couple things here. This is week 2 of Dana Holgerson at offensive coordinator. Had a chance to figure out what he was working with after that USC game and said, okay, this works, this doesn't. And then we're at home versus on the road. So I think there's a bit of that. It'll be interesting to see if he's their OC next year. That's just like I said last week. That's just a weird fit, but if it works. Also, congratulations, Luke Fickle. Clearly, you fixed all your problems by firing Phil Longo and giving up 44 points right after that. Luke Fickle just needs to just hit control alt delete on his Wisconsin tenure, I think.
I mean they're one of the thinking about it now, they're probably one of like they're. I don't know if they're gonna fire him this year because I think this is what still only
No,
year two. No,
no,
still
no, no.
only year
Yeah.
two, right? But like, he's gonna start next year on the hot seat. Billy Napier will. Hugh Freeze will. Ryan Day, depending on how far they go into the playoff. A lot of them are going to be on the hot seat next year, and this is just the first one of a lot. I think half of the Big Ten slash SEC will be on the hot seat next year.
Yeah, it's a quiet year this year in terms of we're talking about with Isaiah. Not a lot of jobs are going to open up, it looks like, this year because it's been such turmoil
Mm-hmm.
the last 2 or 3. All right. My underperformer. Don't know if you saw this, but this, how do I say this? Was this shocking but not surprising? Is that the right use of that phrase here? Um, Boise was getting all that they wanted and what they didn't want from this Wyoming team who was balanced bad, not just bad at some stuff, bad at everything. But guess what else is really bad, Robert? It is that Boise defense. I will tell you that this is a 137 apex by this guy, Caden Anderson. They Boise had no answer for this guy. And it's not like he's throwing to Ohio State's receivers here. He's got Wyoming caliber receivers. Let's just say that. Now, I want to point out that there was some kind of break where Anderson actually was in concussion protocol at halftime and didn't come back. So then they had to go to the horrible, I mean, with a capital H, horrible, Evan Svoboda, who somehow still threw a 96 apex. Before the game, he had a 40 apex coming into this game. I know I just find some spot to throw the same theme into some part of the weekend review, but it's not for no reason. I'm telling you, Boise's defense is bad, especially that pass defense is capital B bad. And you know what? I had Boise over 9.5 wins. I could have had when I was in Vegas in August. I had some books had 9, some had 9.5. I went a little chesty because I said this is a down year for the conference, and I was pretty much right about that. So I went bold and I said I'll go over the 9.5. I got plus money on that. Good for me. Cashed that just with this 10th win. But my God, it wasn't for just lack of worry in almost every week because this defense is bad and they're not going to last long in the playoffs if they make it. If they face UNLV, which who knows now because of the Chernobyl incident seems to be happening here in the Mountain West Conference. Good job, guys. I don't know. I'm going to say I can't see them beating UNLV, but I didn't see them beating them before. But UNLV is just way better. UNLV's sound on both sides of the ball. UNLV doesn't have anything close to liability or exposure that Boise has on their defense, specifically pass defense.
Yeah, this is a little concerning, and this is currently. It's funny that in a vacuum, this is a team that currently has a first round bye in the playoff. Like at this exact moment. Now, maybe that changes, but I
Yeah.
actually don't think it will change. I'm fairly sure that at tomorrow they will still have a first round bye in the playoff, but that's crazy that this is a team that beat Wyoming by 4, a 2-win Wyoming team by 4, and they needed a touchdown I think late to put it over the edge, right? So that is concerning. That is very concerning that this is where we're at right now with by Boise, right? And I think that fundamentally this team has gotten very lucky in some of the games. They played Oregon when they were at their worst.
Mm-hmm.
They got really lucky in some of these games. And they've been playing a lot of close games, and it's as I had said for a while, because a lot of people had this nightmare scenario where, oh, the committee will rank the non-Power 5 champion 25th or something, and then they'll get in 12th. I'm like, no, they're just going to make them 12th. And that's exactly what we're doing, right? Okay, maybe not 12, maybe they'll, like, it's funny how if Boise has a bad week, they'll drop them down to 13, and then they win. It's, oh, back up to 12. Like, it's so funny, because, like, they're like, we can't create some sort of controversy. We have to keep them around, like, 12 and thing, and they also start moving up Army and Tulane as backup plans just in case, because if suddenly Boise loses, then they have to jump up spots, but they can't jump up 10 spots, so we gotta get them at 18, so we can quickly jump them up to. It's insane, but this is how this works now. This is how the playoff committee works now because they don't want to have some sort of controversy, so we have to paint Boise and lock them into this position because if not, then people are going to be mad. It's not. It's just I think there's a lot of issues with this format, and I think this is one of them. And I think it does not to say a G5 team doesn't deserve to be in the college football playoff, but I think the fact that we're in a format where you're rewarded far better for a win, no matter what it looks like on paper, is just a bit. It's not the greatest system when you're rewarded for for a win and loss versus what the stats say. And clearly, having 15 completed passes for 203 yards is not great on that. That's not a great look.
No, it's a shame that there was so much carnage in the SEC, or else this would have been a good test case for that. One or two losses in the SEC would have been a good test case. Do they move Boise up to number 10 then? With everybody losing, it's almost like it's a do-over. You know what I mean? I don't know if they'll jump Boise. It's going to be interesting to see where they land this week. Good point on that. All right. Don't know if I agree with this underperformer. I saw this coming. It wasn't enough for a play, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is an underperformer. This is, I mean, in the strictest definition of the word, this was not what people had expected. This is another team, right? We talk about, oh, the conferences are like, we talk about the differences between the Big Ten and the SEC, and this is a good versus not a good team. But they barely beat Minnesota, a 6-5 Minnesota team. That's not great. And this was a very close game that they ended up winning by 1 point because of a field goal. Lot of issues for Penn State in this game. And I think if you're Penn State, you are not very happy about you should not be very happy about this game. But it shows you that again, Penn State got very lucky in this game. Ole Miss did not get very lucky against Florida,
Yeah.
right? And that's now, to be fair, there's other reasons for that because I was listening to the back end of that Florida Ole Miss game, and basically Jackson Dart basically threw 3 interceptions. One or two of them got called back from holding, but basically was not making a lot of good decisions down the stretch there, and that happens sometimes. But at the same time, this is the number 4 team in the country, and they're 10-1, and they beat a basically bare bowl eligible team by 1. And it's not even like Penn State is looking ahead to someone because I don't even know who do they even play this weekend. Is it like Wisconsin or something? It's not anybody that I'm like. Okay, I have this now. Let me look it up here.
My guess is going to be Michigan State because I think that's what they
No,
try to
Maryland
jam them into.
somehow.
Okay.
All right, I
Well,
guess
well.
Maryland. They're arch rivals from
Rivalry weekend. Yes.
yeah, they're arch rivals from across the border of Baltimore and Pennsylvania.
It is a
But
long border, in fairness, right?
it is a border. There is a border there, I think. It's a
It
bit
is.
complicated as to what does border what with DC and Delaware and all that stuff. But there's a border there. There's a border. I guess it's a border rivalry. But no, yeah, it's not a great look. And if you're the Big Ten, I think again clearly Ohio State and Oregon are your two best teams. 100%, they are. Like that's not a question. They are your two best teams. But I think after that, there's a very clear gap between Penn State and Indiana. And I think that gap between those two teams and the rest of the Big Ten is a lot smaller than the gap between Georgia/Texas and the rest of the SEC. And I think while the committee is not designed to understand or even comprehend that nuance, it needs to be. We need to talk about this more as analysts here. That very because the committee and people who talk about this are trained to be like this league's better than the other league, but no, it's the top of this league is better than the top of this league, but then the gap here is it's
Uh,
complicated, but people don't care about that nuance. They just say that Penn State has 1 loss, Ole Miss has 3 losses, therefore done.
I'm gonna throw a UFO into here. Hopefully this works. The entire northern border of Maryland is with Pennsylvania. How about that? This is an official border war. This maybe it means more to Maryland because it's their entire northern border that's exposed to the advancing armies of Pennsylvania. But yeah, they do border. This is all. That's all Pennsylvania right there. Today's geography. I'm a geography. You're welcome, everybody. I saw this one coming. Just Minnesota's kind of a pain in the ass team to play, especially if you're not really focused. They've got a really good defense. That's again not eye popping until you play them. They're just frustrating. So I thought this was going to be a play. I don't know if my model had. I think it did, and I think your model talk didn't have it as playable. Yeah, PJ Fleck apparently can only pull out the late ones against USC. So yay for my team. All right, Robert. Apparently, since you're the chill Canadian, this is going to become a coaching session. So you're saying that nothing annoys you this week?
I could just keep we could keep having
That's fine.
long
No, it's you don't feel
yeah.
obligated. Just all right. Just stare closely here. You need to get fired up. Okay, this is just to get you fired up for next week. This is our guy who, yeah. There's your little inspiration to get annoyed for next week. Okay.
He's so angry.
Um, I think we'll come back to him pretty soon. So
Yeah.
speaking of which, Narduzzi Awards. This was an absolute gem. It's not often, and we have a double here this week where a winning coach gets an Narduzzi. It's not an exaggeration to say I've never seen a play more overthought than what Kenny Dillingham did. If somehow you are listening or watching this pod and you don't know what happened, the whole story is right here. Arizona State's final possession, 4 plays, covering 1 minute and 3 seconds for minus 42 yards, leaving 1 second on the clock for BYU somehow. Little miscalc by our guy Kenny Dillingham, whom we both love. Just a great story. But students really didn't get the message until later that the game was not over. So what happens? They rush the field, then they unrush the field, and as I think it was McDonough said, either him or Pash, maybe it was Dave Pash said, they've apparently, I've never heard this before. There's been a lot of first times this season in college football for me. He said, apparently they've cleared the field enough. I've not heard that sentence ever said. It's just they say we're not getting it done. So you've got a bunch of students. I don't know if they're like on the field, almost on the field, but then Hail Mary falls short. And of course, because it's 2024 and then we have to do this, this guy is apparently just taking a break from his PhD in molecular biology to go ahead and just literally live stream on Instagram this poor kid from BYU who's still on the ground having caught the ball. I will tell you, caught the ball, but he short of the end zone. And so, of course, this guy has to go there and just stream it live to all his bros back at the whatever house. So much wrong in this game. It was one of those things that only happens in college football because it's there's been it's I'll say it's not atypical for what with a season full of just really weird things.
Yeah, pretty crazy end to this game. And yeah, again, it's always a classic when you have the field storming and then the unfield storming and then the final field storming again, and that's always a classic.
Yeah, cleared enough. That just I don't know. Just are these safety belts fastened? They're fastened enough. Just we're gonna go now, okay?
Yeah.
All right, you're also going with the winning coach here for your Narduzzi Award.
Yeah, so I was watching this game, and now we actually had Auburn plus 2.5 as our play. So I actually needed the field goal here to send it to overtime because we were losing here. At this moment, it was a 3-point game. We needed the field goal to send to overtime. And this is the final drive here by Auburn to tie the game. Now, when most people, and we are college football and just in general football fans, right? When you think of game tying slash winning drive, you think of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. You think of them stepping up at the pocket, throwing it deep, getting a bunch of completions, people getting out of bounds, like a great throw over the middle to someone wide open, a tight. That's the visions you think of when you think of game-winning drive. Auburn did none of that. Auburn decided, one, Peyton Thorne had a 23-yard scramble, which, you know what, that's fine. That happens sometimes. You know what, sometimes the best option is just to run it. That's fine. They're at 4th and 3, and then he can't find anybody open, so he runs. That's good. I like that. That's good situational awareness by the quarterback. Then they randomly start running the ball, and these are not like, oh, the first one was clearly not a designed run because you wouldn't do a designed run on 4th and 3. That would be insane. But the rest of these are. So then it's 1 minute and 30 left in the fourth quarter. You're on the Texas A&M 40-yard line, and then you have a designed run up the middle for 4 yards. And the best part is this isn't being defended because they're like, why would you run it? Like, why would you run the ball right now? We're clearly not going to defend against the run up the middle because why would you run the ball with 1 minute and 30 left? That's insane. But our guy, Hugh Freeze, is like, no, that's what they want you to think. They want you to think that we're not going to run the ball, so we're gonna do it. Then they completes a 7-yard. They incompletes a pass. Then a 7-yard pass to get a first down. And then they hand the ball off twice to the running back, to this Jarquez Hunter.
Jarquez Hunter, yeah.
Yeah, 2 11-yard runs, which, first of all, you have one job. You can't stop this guy. It's a minute left in the game. You physically can't stop this guy from running. What? Two? Why would you be calling draw plays when there's a minute left in the game? This makes no sense. And they're not even using penalty. They're not using timeouts through all this. They're just running the ball. That's insane. Why would you? This is not how you do this. You do this when you're up 20 in the fourth quarter. You don't do this when you're down a field goal. I guess maybe you're trying to bleed the clock, but that's also insane because you're like, I don't even know, man. This is crazy. So then, okay, then they get a false start penalty because, of course, when they get to the goal line,
Yeah.
and then complete a pass for 4 yards. Then we decide to do the run up the middle again. That doesn't work. Then another false start. And then Texas A&M takes a timeout, and then, of course, we try a desperation pass to the end zone. That doesn't work. And then we kick a field goal. And we just say, all right, guys, we gave it our all. We go to overtime, and then they eventually win in overtime. But this sequence is insane. Like we talked last week about the Cal Stanford, or not Cal Stanford, Cal Clemson, and how, oh no, sorry,
Pitt Clemson, yeah.
Pitt Clemson, and how the OG Narduzzi just completely
Yeah.
screwed that one up. And now we come to this one. The Hugh Freeze is a disciple of the Narduzzi. Whatever this was, I don't know what they were trying to do by running the ball 3 times. This is just so unorthodox. It's not even. I've never seen anything like this. I don't know why you would even think to try to do this, but it somehow worked. So, okay,
Well,
like I
in
guess
fairness, his quarterback is Peyton Thorne, and you might have noticed Peyton Thorne has thrown like 1 or 2 interceptions this year.
But is that how little? If you have that little confidence in your quarterback, maybe you should
Yeah.
not do that then. If you have so little confidence in your quarterback, then why is he your quarterback?
Robert, it's almost as if they made a mistake in not getting a quarterback in the offseason. I don't know. Have we talked
Yeah,
about that at all on this
yeah.
podcast?
But the thing is, I've never seen it where you're like, all right, a minute left. We gotta give it to our best player, the running back. What are you? That's not how this works. And these weren't even. It wasn't even run outside. It was run up the middle. I don't know. That's crazy.
It,
I was
it
like yelling at the screen. What is happening?
both of our models. I don't know if you actually played Auburn plus the and
I
I
did. Yeah.
was I thought I was smart by waiting for it to go from 2.5 to 3, and then it dropped to 2. It's okay, I'll take 2, and that was looking really grim for a while. But this, it was like he had incidental interest in scoring a touchdown, is how I would
Yeah.
characterize it.
You were
Yeah,
watching this?
I tried not to. By the overtime, I couldn't anymore. I just can't. I can't. There was another game going at the same time. I can't remember which one, but just this was just really just giving me just aja. So
No, because that's that. No, you nail it perfectly, right? Like when they got to the first and goal, it was like they were like, and if you
yeah,
read it this way, it makes sense. It's their plan was to kick a field goal. It's like the dog that catches the car. It's, oh shoot, we could score now. What do we do? We weren't actually going to try to score, so I guess we'll just stick around for a couple plays and then kick a field goal, and then that's exactly what they did. Maybe that
no,
was
no,
the
no.
plan.
It's a refined like Southern European. I'm so wealthy. Just hey, field goal, touchdown. Who really cares? That's what you vagrants think about so much. Yeah, that was. I think I've said this 3 times this year. It's just like these poor Auburn fans. These poor. And it takes a lot for me to say that too. Not that I hate Auburn, but just that dysfunction doesn't come from nowhere. That's around that program. It's probably a function of those fans. But just during the time on the field, I feel bad for you if you just happen to watch just this. Somehow it worked. So I don't know. Joke's on us. But we cashed. But it wasn't easy, man. That we earned that one. We earned that more than Hugh Freeze did. I'll tell you that.
Like when they did the draw play on 1st and 10 from the 29-yard line, I'm like, what are they doing? What is happening right now? I'm like,
Yeah.
why is this happening?
And their kicker stinks too. So they
Yeah.
got lucky there. All right. Noted for future reference. Just an update on this kind of ongoing story, which is less but more of a story. Quinn Ewers is being treated for or tested or whatever for an ankle injury, but it's whatever. I think it was out with an oblique injury earlier in the season, and it ain't coming back, guys. Just put this in your back pocket for now for when you're looking at once we get the brackets out, the real bracket, the final bracket. I don't like what I'm seeing here, and it's not a small sample size anymore. This is a pretty consistent trend. 88 Apex. I don't like the chances of Texas winning 3 or 4 straight, depending on how they do against A&M, to win the title. Don't like it. Do not like it. This was interesting. So NBC had a different cut of Jaden Mayava, which I didn't even realize. So I did a different thing. In his first start for USC, his first 6 passes, which ended with that pick 6 against Nebraska, those 6 passes, he had an apex of negative 156. And he since then 107. Not awesome, but this is 20 points higher than Miller Moss. Against 2 pretty good, not elite, creditable defenses in Nebraska and UCLA. This is interesting. I never thought to cut it that way, but they actually said, yep, after the pick 6, he's been okay. And he has been okay. And again, came through, used his legs for the winning touchdown, which God bless Miller Moss, but he doesn't have the foot speed to have scrambled around and made that play. I got to keep on hitting on this, man. Oklahoma State has a chance for the dream season in the Big 12. All they have to do is lose to Colorado, and they will have be 0 for the Big 12 season. Uh, Amazing. Grayson
I
James,
yeah
this
the
what
Oak. Oh yeah.
I can we there needs to be like I don't know a different award for just like there's an annual bonus and then sometimes there's what they call a spot bonus. Um, we need like a spot coach of the year, and just like for what Bill O'Brien has done with Grayson James is ridiculous, and it's so under. What's going to happen about the middle of next year? Some guy like on I don't know some national platform say, "Hey, you know what? Grayson James, you should go back and look at what he did at Florida International. He wasn't that good, huh?" I mean, this is Helen Keller kind of stuff work that he's doing here. Amazing. One was, I mean, now North Carolina, as James Madison showed, they don't have the best defense, but this is not the Grayson James that we came to know and love at Florida International for sure. This Cal game, and I don't want to spoil this too much, but it'll be in their sharpest look back in the next episode. But for all the panic they had to just barely pull that out, this is one of those crazy games where post game they had an 87% win expectancy post game. Weird game there. That just I looked at the stats and I was like, what the heck happened here? How was this even close? And then just Stanford just went on touchdown drives improbably. The first 2 drives, and then after that they just turtled up there. The Mountain West counterpart to Kennesaw State. Two things here. First of all, Air Force has definitely turned it around. They're 3-0 in their last 3 games. They've made definite improvements. On offense, they've improved by half a yard per play, which is significant. On defense, 0.7 yards, which is really good. Something has fallen into place. They're three. You might remember, Robert, this team had nobody returning. They were like in the preseason, Mountain West preseason preview, they were like pink all the way across because they basically had nothing coming back. Something might have fallen into place for them in the last 3 games. There's definite improvement here. Something to remember for next year. I will point out though that they are 3-0. Over that stretch, they're being outgained by almost 1 yard per play, which is ridiculous. This is like Kennesaw State level luck right here that you're looking at. I don't know how they're 3-0, but they've pulled it off. And Caden Hauser at East Carolina, just a new high here. Now 225 apex. At North Texas, we've said not a great defense, but Caden Hauser, where have you been, dude? You could have saved Mike Houston's job. Apparently, there's a big movement, and I think they're undefeated for the ECU interim coach to get the permanent job. And at this point, I want to say it's hard to say no, but then how's that working out for Northwestern this year?
Hmm.
All right. And with that, thank you, college football. That wraps up our week 13 preview or review. Pardon me. I'm a little excited here. We will get to our week 14 preview in our next episode. Please tune in then. We will see you there. And Robert and I will talk to you then.
Yep. See ya.